John Adams once said, "I must study war so that my sons may have liberty to study philosophy."
And thereby, his sons and their sons and their sons would have the liberty to listen to presidential war. Presidential war. What is it good for intellectual stimulation? Say it again now. Presidential war. What is it good for blistering in the nation? Presidential war. Hello, me lovelies. We're back with another edition of Presidential War. And you'll have to excuse if I seem a bit tired. I was up late last night at a long dick meeting. Sure you all know what that's like. Sorry about that if you're just tuning in. It appears we picked up a little bit of the Dead Australian Prime Minister's podcast.
Yeah, that's right. This is the Dead President's podcast.
Yeah, we are, of course, the Dead President's podcast. Sorry about that little bit of technical difficulty there. This is Stephen Lincoln Douglas.
And I am James J. Hamilton.
And we're back for another exciting episode of Presidential War.
That's right.
Yeah, we're going to try and mix things up a little bit more here today.
We've got another little wrinkle in the game. So many different ways to play Presidential War. This time we are going to draw three. We're going to have a 3-card hand. We're going to flip 3 categories at once and decide which of our 3 presidents are going to go on each category, and then play through those 3, get a new 3, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's the thing about Presidential War. You could kind of mend it to be any way you like, and that's why it's the nation's favorite presidential educational card game.
Yep.
So here we go. We are pulling 3 category cards.
Yep. 3 categories up first are going to be 1, who would win in a fight?
2, post-presidential accomplishments.
And 3, best educated.
All right, so we got our 3-card hands. We got our 3 categories. And we are going to decide who for what. And go through these one by one. All right, our choices have been made. So we're going to go to the first category here. Who would win in a fight? Our respective draws.
I'm going Harry Truman.
And I'm going James A. Garfield. And boy, does that look like it could be a slobber knocker.
Yeah. Garfield, quite a strapping man.
Indeed. And Truman himself, not nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, Truman, 5'9", weighing in at 167. Seems like he'd be pretty scrappy.
Indeed, and as his personality, fiery.
Mm-hmm.
Garfield, 6 foot tall, 185 pounds. He's in good shape.
Yeah. Truman, World War I veteran. Garfield, a Civil War veteran. I don't know, Garfield has a pretty decent size advantage.
He does, and another thing that I'm going to say, if Garfield is able to slap Truman's glasses off his face, then decisive advantage.
Yep.
He'll
have the height advantage and the sight advantage.
Yeah. Height, sight, and size. I think we got to go James Garfield.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. Garfield going to take the hand.
Next up, we got post-presidential accomplishments.
I've got Herbert Hoover.
And I read that wrong. I was thinking pre-presidential accomplishments. Boy, did I mess up. I went John Tyler, whose presidential accomplishment was to become a traitor.
Yep. John Tyler.
I was thinking pre-presidential. Man,
Uh-oh.
that is too bad.
Yep, John Tyler ignominiously joining the Confederacy. And
Being buried with a Confederate flag draping his coffin.
dying
The old St. Andrew's
as a
cross.
Confederate. Probably, maybe technically the worst card in this category.
Yeah.
Even like...
The only president that did not have a state funeral because he died a traitor to his country. Boy.
Well, Herbert Hoover, he lived till 1964. His post-presidency over 30 years. Was pretty well respected.
Yeah, definitely. Hoover, I mean, there's calls with him and JFK. He lived. He lived until 64. Hoover. So I mean, there were presidents, seeking out his advice.
Yeah, he was chairman of the Commission on Organization of the Executive Branch, known as the Hoover Commission, 1947 to 49, and the Commission on Government Operations, the so-called Second Hoover Commission.
Yeah.
53 to 55, couple of Hoover commissions. He made a lot of recommendations to streamline the government in those commissions.
I believe it was Coolidge that said about Hoover, he has offered me unsolicited advice for the past so many years, all of it bad.
Yeah.
And yet, future presidents are chatting up with Hoover about what's going on. Maybe not, it's not like they were calling him and being like, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
But, there's calls recorded in the White House where they'll call him and be like, well, this is what's going on. And this is the state of things. What do you think?
Yeah. And I think we've mentioned it before, but he toured Europe in 1938, meeting Hitler.
Right.
Whom he found to be, quote, partly insane, but intelligent and well-informed, according to the Complete Book of U.S. Presidents.
Yeah.
A partly accurate assessment of Hitler.
Indeed.
Well,
I mean, I blew this hand.
Gonna...
For some reason, I was thinking pre-presidential accomplishments, and I messed this up.
Well, there are only a few cards to choose from, so there's not necessarily a lot of choices, but Herbert Hoover is going to go down.
He's going to go down as the victor over John Tyler in this
true.
In this category. And next up, we got Best Educated. And I was left with Ulysses S. Grant, which if you're looking at military education, he had the best you could get.
West Point's pretty prestigious.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, he had some shortcomings, but by God.
Yeah. I went with Warren Harding, kind of through process of elimination. Harding, at age 15, he entered Ohio Central College, was one of 60 students. He graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree, delivered a commencement address. Previously, attended a one-room schoolhouse growing up. He got a little bit of an education. Nothing too fancy. Pretty straightforward. Worked on the campus newspaper, which became his career as a newspaperman.
This is a good match, really, because I think, honestly, these are two of the lower-ranking presidents.
Yeah, and I mean, they're probably on the lower end in terms of what people think of as like the most intellectual president.
Yeah. You hate to sound rude there, but, that's just kind of the way it is. But you're talking a kind of different type of education. Grant at West Point, he's receiving a different sort of education than Harding would have doing what he was doing.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
I mean,
Grant is getting military training.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, West Point, it still had like.
Oh yeah,
other
it
math
definitely. You had
and
to
stuff
learn
like that.
the classics and different things. Absolutely. You know.
And he went to some, academies growing up. His dad had a lot of money.
Yeah.
Sent him out. I think Grant would take this.
I have a feeling you would too.
His, West Point, you need congressmen to recommend for you to get in there. It's pretty prestigious.
Yeah, and Harding
didn't make
is kind of more known as one of the lesser intellects.
Yeah, I mean,
among U.S. presidents. I mean, I'm not saying he was an idiot, but
I mean,
if
you were gonna say
put up the scope of presidents and you look at people like Jefferson and Madison,
if you had to
Harding's
pick
not on
like
that level.
a handful of presidents that you were gonna call an idiot, Harding would probably be on there.
Yeah,
if you had to,
right.
But I mean, that's not necessarily education. You could go to Harvard and still
be a fool,
an idiot. But yeah, Grant, a little more educated.
Indeed. And
We're gonna
so
move on to our next three categories with three new presidents. Our categories being: who would you rather have date your daughter?
Number 2, who would you most like to meet?
Number 3, best statesman.
Okay, so here we go.
Okay.
I had to check for a second to make sure I didn't put them down backwards and wreck my whole hand.
You gotta be careful here.
Indeed.
We're trying a new experiment.
That's right. So, first off, who would you rather have date your daughter? Out of the 3 presidents in your hand,
My daughter is coming home with Grover Cleveland.
and my daughter is coming home with Rutherford B. Hayes.
Nice.
Yeah. Cleveland, partier,
Yeah.
bachelor.
He didn't get married till late in life. Infamously, of course, fathering a bastard child, but also, like a man, taking responsibility. So you figure if Grover Cleveland were to knock up your daughter, at least he'd stay in the picture.
And if you have a younger daughter, you might be wary because, Grover Cleveland kind of groomed his wife from the time she was like 6 years old.
Well, perhaps.
Future
but
wife.
I think they had a pretty good marriage. I think old Frank Cleveland ended up pretty happy there.
Yeah.
You might be, you have a young daughter and your daughter's all of a sudden marrying the sitting president. If Grover Cleveland can be sitting president at the time he's dating my daughter,
that's
that'd
the
be
thing,
pretty
like,
fun.
But today that's horrifying. It's his law partner's kid.
Yeah.
He knew her from the time she was an infant.
Mm-hmm.
And then old man Folsom dies, and the old widow Folsom starts hanging around the White House, and everybody's like, oh man, GC and old widow Folsom, huh? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And she's probably thinking that too. She's like, I might be the next first lady.
Yeah.
And then Grover Cleveland, to quote myself from a previous episode, how about that daughter? Habba, habba.
Yeah. Well,
A little bit creepy. Hayes, pretty upstanding dude.
yeah.
I'm going to say morally,
Mm-hmm.
pretty good guy.
Yeah. He was very
Cleveland was an
morally
honest dude.
Mm-hmm.
But he's out drinking, he's out
Yeah.
partying.
He had a...
Things happen. Hayes, there's not really a blemish on his character, to be honest.
He's pretty solid, and of the presidents we've covered so far, certainly one of, I think, the happiest marriages.
I agree.
Had a really strong family, and I think, everything good there.
Yeah, he and old Lucy Hayes, Lemonade Lucy, easily one of the happiest presidential marriages.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of the top guys you could have in this category.
Yeah,
honestly.
I'd put Hayes on par with Coolidge and Polk in this category in terms of the position their wives had in their lives.
Yeah. And well, not to spoil my next two cards, I mean, I pretty much had to go with Cleveland because my other two guys are on the top 5 adulterers list.
Oh, boy.
So, but Hayes will edge out Cleveland, and we'll move on to who would you most like to meet. I want to meet Bill Clinton.
I want to meet Benjamin Harrison.
I mostly wanted to meet Bill Clinton so that he would not be dating my daughter.
Yeah, right.
He'd be pretty cool to hang out with, probably. Pretty cool to have a beer with.
It could be interesting, absolutely. Of course, he's one that you could still technically meet.
Yeah.
So, there's that to factor into it. Like, I'd rather imagine meeting him. Like, if I could go back to, 92, like, at the age I am now, and, meet up and have a burger and a beer.
Yeah.
Like, that might be pretty cool. You never know.
That'd be pretty cool.
But, thinking of him now, it's like he's all, frail and old, and, Jimmy Carter might outlive him, and...
Yeah, well... I think you would, in this category, you get to meet the president in his prime if you choose.
Yeah.
Because...
Well, obviously you have to for some of them.
Yeah, you got Ben Harrison.
Yeah.
We'll have to go back. I'd like to meet Benjamin Harrison immediately after he found out that his father's corpse had been found misplaced after its a supposed burial.
Yeah. Or, of course, as Benjamin Harrison, was famously afraid of the light switches. Electricity is introduced into the White House during Harrison's tenure.
Yeah.
He and his wife are too afraid to touch the switches.
Mm-hmm.
He has a fear of being electrocuted. And I'd like to go to the moment late in life where Harrison decided he was going to confront his fear, and he stood at the switch and continuously turned it on and off until it electrocuted and killed him.
Fun fact.
That's a little known fact of history. That's how Benjamin Harrison died.
Yeah. It'd be fun to meet Benjamin Harrison and you go to shake his hand and you have one of those little hand buzzers.
Yeah.
He thinks he's getting electrocuted.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know. Wasn't Benjamin Harrison known as an icicle?
He was known as the human icicle, the human iceberg.
Yeah.
Not the friendliest of people. I don't know. That's part of the reason why I'd like to meet him. I want to see if I could crack through that icy exterior and penetrate the real Benjamin Harrison.
Yeah. Whereas if I was meeting Bill Clinton, I don't think I could just sit back and be penetrated by Bill Clinton. With you wouldn't have to put in any effort.
Yeah.
To have a good time with Bill Clinton.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta go Clinton here.
Yeah, I think Clinton, he'll take this category.
Yeah.
Brings us to Best Statesman. And I've got Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Ooh, that's a good one, but I think that there's gonna be some debate, maybe in our comment section, about who's gonna win this hand. Because I've got Ronald Reagan.
Wow. Two pretty good statesmen.
Yeah. Not too shabby. I mean, you gotta go FDR, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be like, oh, Reagan's way better. FDR, socialist experiments.
Well,
that I mean, that wasn't exactly statesmanship.
Yeah.
You gotta look at FDR's role in World War II, where he was an incredible statesman.
Yeah.
His third term, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Roosevelt's third term, one of the strongest terms in presidential history. You can't argue it. I mean, and it had to be. And that's where he really came into it.
His first two terms, not that great, honestly.
Honestly, not that great.
But he really stepped up there.
Of course, what helped with getting him a third term was that the war had begun.
Yeah.
Well, in earnest, it was like, we might get involved in this. So it's on the fence.
Yeah. Yeah, but of course his, meeting with Churchill and Stalin, some of the greatest moments of American statesmanship.
Yeah. But you got to give Reagan credit, too. His stance on the Soviet Union there.
He also took a strong stance. Had a pretty good relationship with Gorbachev.
Yeah.
Good relationship with Margaret Thatcher.
That's it. I mean, he did pretty well. I mean, he's not a bad card in this category. I don't think he trumps FDR.
No, yeah, he'd be pretty high, but FDR, one of the highest in this category. He's going to take it. We're going to choose 3 new cards and 3 new categories, which are going to be First Lady Looks,
Best Politician,
and who would you pick first in flag football?
Man, this looks so good for me. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
This looks incredible for me.
I'm not, I'm torn by my choices here.
Oh, I made my choices immediately. This couldn't have worked out possibly better.
Well,
this could be one of the historic occasions where Stephen Lincoln Douglas triumphs at presidential war. It happens so few times, in fact, that on the 3rd time that I won, I thought it was only the 2nd time.
yeah. Well, we'll see.
But we'll see what happens here. We got First Lady Looks.
First Lady Looks. You're going to have to go up against 2 First Ladies. Woodrow Wilson.
Well, I'm confident. I'm confident in going up against them with Grace Coolidge. That lady in red, that classic portrait.
Yep. I'm pulling up.
She was beloved by the nation during the Roaring 20s.
Wilson's first wife, Ellen. Ellen Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
There's her picture.
Yep, there she is, kind of frumpy.
Well, yeah. Can't argue with that. And then Edith, Madam President.
Yep, Madam President, there she is.
But this isn't First Lady accomplishments. And then we've got Grace Coolidge. Wow. Yeah,
Darling of the 1920s. The lady in red portrait is the best First Lady portrait, I think.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, Grace Coolidge was a remarkable woman. Like, I know we're just objectifying in this category, but I do want to say that Grace Coolidge was the First Lady that actually, graduated from college. Later, she got an honorary degree in law. She taught school at a school for the deaf. She was an intelligent and outgoing and charming First Lady, I think amongst our best.
Well,
and like Sarah Polk and James Polk, just such a beautiful contrast between the two. Coolidge, he had a sense of humor and everything, but he was kind of taciturn. And Grace, outgoing, vivacious, just a perfect presidential couple.
Well, she's better looking than both Mrs. Wilsons.
Yeah, we got to give it to her there.
She's going to take that one. Now we're going to go best politician. I've got Abe Lincoln.
Not bad, because I have maybe the best card in this particular category, Martin Van Buren.
Nice.
Yeah. Lincoln, great politician. Martin Van Buren maybe defined American politics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, Martin Van Buren, a master politician for decades.
Yeah. Political organization. He created the Democratic Party.
Taking control of New York State, the swing
which was,
state,
as we've said time and time again, integral.
Yeah. Building the Jacksonian coalition.
which was a powerful force.
Yeah.
You know, Lincoln had to be a good politician, but I don't know if it...
He was... Yeah, I think a lot of his good politicianing was while he was president, because
Yeah.
prior to that, he, lost a couple of Senate races, kind of really
He
rose
still
to
had
prominence.
he had a good style,
Yeah.
but he wasn't winning.
Yeah, I mean, he was more statesman-like in a way. Like, he rose to prominence
Yeah.
debating Douglas, taking
Right.
strong stands, being like an intellectual leader
Yeah.
more than in the back rooms.
Yeah, he had to be more of a politician when he was trying to get the 13th Amendment through.
Yeah.
You know, and then he was, by God.
Mm-hmm.
He had some help, but, pretty shrewd, pretty great. But does it match up to MVB?
I don't know.
MVB undone and, by their own policies, in a sense, with the Bank of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Well,
That
I think...
collapse. He tried to do an independent treasury. It didn't work out as well as it could have. James K. Polk ends up kind of solving the problem. So you got to give him credit for trying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, certainly, like, MVB pre-presidentially would be top politician, maybe over anybody.
The Red Fox of Kinderhook, the little magician.
Yeah.
I think he's unsurpassed as a politician.
Yeah.
For that period of time.
I mean, yeah, all the politicians after him were working within a system that he created as much as anyone else. So yeah, I'd probably give this to him.
MVB, eking it out.
Yep.
Over Abe Lincoln. And last but not least, who would you pick first in flag football? I've got Zachary Taylor.
I'm picking James Monroe.
Okay. So we got Taylor and Monroe, both veterans.
Yep.
Both pretty tough. I mean, I think you don't look at James Monroe and picture like, oh, he's a tough dude. But James Monroe went through some shit.
Yeah.
He got seriously wounded, like damn near died during the Revolutionary War. He was a bad man. He's not somebody to be necessarily trifled with. And Taylor, too, is known as old, rough, and ready.
Yeah. Monroe, pretty tough. Yeah, he was almost would have been the only American to die at the Battle of Trenton. But he pulled it out. Mm-hmm. And, even into his, older age during Madison's presidency, War of 1812, he's jumping on his horse and riding out to reconnoiter the British.
Yep.
Monroe, 6 feet tall, 189 pounds. Pretty formidable physical presence.
Yeah, you got Taylor, 5'8", 170 pounds in his prime, about 200 as president. And he's described as having something of a disproportionate figure. Long, gangling arms, thickly set torso, short, bowed legs. But a tough guy.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be a really good choice between the two.
I think Monroe, he has the height advantage. And
he does.
With Taylor's legs, I mean, you got to figure Monroe would probably be faster.
That's what I'm wondering. Monroe would probably have the longer gait.
Yep.
And you're talking flag football here, not contact football.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say that gives the advantage to James Monroe.
Yep.
He's a little bit taller, a little bit, probably a little bit better built.
Yeah.
Not knocking Taylor, he's probably sturdy,
Yep.
But 5'8" and 200 pounds as president, oof. 5'8", 200. I mean,
Yeah, I think I'd go with Monroe on this
I
one.
think I would.
Monroe
So I didn't
taking
sweep
the flag
that.
football. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah.
Stephen Lincoln Douglas out in front so far in this iteration of war. We're re-upping with 3 new categories, 3 new cards. This time we're going most devious
Biggest partier.
and biggest election victories. I got a pretty nice setup.
I had to make a
For
tough
this
choice,
hand.
but I'm going for it.
Well,
Starting with most devious.
Most devious. I've got James K. Polk.
Oh boy. He's going up against George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush, this is more like, the rap that he gets for being the head of the CIA there and all that.
Yeah.
And Republican infringement into Ross Perot's 1992 run, where Perot's ahead and then Republican operatives try and fuck with him.
Yeah. And what
Yeah,
was
that's
that?
some bullshit.
Yeah. What was that ad that he ran against Dukakis? Was that Willie Horton?
Willie Horton.
Yeah. Dukakis favored furloughs for prisoners, and Willie Horton killed someone on a furlough.
Yeah.
And that's
And boy,
what
did they-
Dukakis stands
That's
for.
what Dukakis stands
Murder.
for. Right. Yeah, that's pretty much essentially it.
Yeah.
And then that debate, their first debate, the very first question, Bernard Shaw says to Dukakis, the first question is for Governor Dukakis. Governor, if Kitty Dukakis were raped and murdered, would you favor a death penalty for that person? And it was just like, holy shit, wow. And he had to go, he was like, Dukakis said, no, of course I wouldn't, Bernard. It's been proven that the death penalty is, I'm going into John Lovitz as Dukakis there, but it made Dukakis come off as like cold and detached. Wow. But what a loaded first question. First question of the first debate.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
Did Bush have to answer that question?
No.
Did he come in? He's like, yeah, I would execute the person who raped and murdered Kitty Dukakis.
Yeah, maybe.
Even if her husband won't.
I mean, that's the moment that, is the soundbite.
Wow.
But those debates, I've watched every debate from Kennedy Nixon on, every one that's available on YouTube, and it's enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I couldn't believe that was the very first one asked there. Getting back on topic, there's some devious shit with Bush, but James K. Polk was...
He's pretty known for his deviousness.
He was kind of a mastermind when it came to it.
Yeah, there's a quote here from a Tennessee newspaper in 1838. James K. Polk is an artful, cunning, intriguing man. He will talk soft words to you. He has a smooth tongue. But mind, he is a snake in the grass. He will steal around you and win you away ere you are apprised of it.
Yeah.
That was kind of his political style.
And he used it to his advantage in a lot of ways.
He had Congress pass the Walker Tariff and the Independent Treasury by very narrow margins while he held the Rivers and Harbors bill on his desk. And as soon as they passed his things, he vetoed that bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta go Polk.
Yeah. Polk, a pretty high card in this category.
Yeah, I think so.
Rather devious.
Next up, we have the category of biggest partier.
And I'm going with, as we have already mentioned, Grover Cleveland.
And I'm going with Franklin Pierce.
Nice.
Yeah. These guys would have a hell of a time out together.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
That'd be a fun fun night. Go out to the bar with Grover Cleveland and Frank Pierce.
I'd be down. Yeah, I think it's going to come down to timing. Franklin Pierce, is pretty much notorious amongst presidents for his alcoholic tendencies.
Yeah, he probably started off as a partier, but later in life, it was just more sad.
Yeah.
He was then the sad drinker.
Mm-hmm.
So young Franklin Pierce, probably a pretty decent partier.
That's right. Yeah. Look into the definition of partier. Yeah. Just because he's drinking.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he's partying.
Old Franklin
He's
Pierce.
washing away those tears.
Yeah. Drowning tragedy in liquor.
Yeah.
Whereas Grover Cleveland, he had a good time.
Oh, yeah. He loved a bibulous night on the town.
It says right here in the Complete Book of U.S. Presidents, he smoked cigars and drank liquor, mostly beer. As a young bachelor, he was a regular at various Buffalo saloons and beer gardens. As his size evidenced, he loved to eat, especially German food.
He's probably crushing bratwurst and Maul and steins of beer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Him and his buddy made a pact to only drink, 3 beers a day, but then they got the huge fucking steins that were
That's right.
Probably 10 beers
Yeah,
each.
yeah. They made a pledge to drink less.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
And then figured out a way to not break
cheated
the pledge.
the system.
Cheat the system to continue drinking prodigious amounts. Obviously, Cleveland, fathering a bastard child, was having some fun. And then when he's president and an older man, he's marrying a 21-year-old girl.
Yeah.
He knew how to get down.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to say that, the category isn't biggest alcoholic.
Yeah. Pierce,
biggest
of course,
partier.
Pierce number one.
Probably
on our
partied
top 5
in his
drunkest
early
presidents.
days when he could.
Yeah.
When he could get away from his wife.
Yeah.
When he was in Congress on his own. That's the most famous stories of him drinking.
When he was in the Aztec Club at Mexico City.
Right.
With U.S. Grant.
And McClellan and all of them. Yeah. But Cleveland was just kind of able to just do it.
Yeah. I'd probably go Cleveland
Pierce
here.
is the bigger alcoholic.
Yeah.
He's the bigger presidential drinker as per our list.
Yeah. There ended up being such a dark cloud over his imbibing.
Yeah, it's not partying at that point. It's, I'm fucking miserable and I'm going to drink myself to death. Mm-hmm. I think, that being said, we got to go Cleveland.
Yeah.
I think we'll give it to him.
Cleveland gonna take the partying crown from Pierce.
And next up, we got biggest election victories. I've got William Howard Taft.
I've got James Buchanan.
Taft v. Buchanan, okay.
Buchanan, notoriously the worst president, but he did win the election.
That he did.
1856, Buchanan won 45% of the popular vote against 33% won by Republican candidate John C. Fremont and 22% by Know-Nothing candidate Millard Fillmore.
Mm-hmm.
Buchanan taking the electoral vote 174 to 114 for Fremont and 8 for Fillmore. Pretty solid victory. And then, he also won a pretty solid run of House races and was named a senator. Pretty successful career up until he became president.
Yeah.
But he won his elections.
That's it. On the reverse side, we got Taft, 1908. Taft getting 52% of the vote against William Jennings Bryan's 43%, and Eugene V. Debs on the socialist ticket with 3% of the votes. 3% of the votes. That was about 420,800 some votes for Debs. Electorally, Taft 321 to Bryan's 162. Looking at popular votes by the number, you got Taft with 7,680,000, just shy of 7,680,000, and Bryan with just over 6,400,000.
It's a pretty substantial victory.
Yeah, the Taft winning the electoral majority in 29 states. Bryan carrying 17.
But then I think you got to count against Taft 1912.
I think you do as well.
Whereas one of the top two major party nominees and an incumbent president, he got 8 electoral votes.
And finished third.
He had 23% of the vote against 27% for TR.
Yeah, that
42
could
for
be,
Wilson.
That could be the saddest, result of a sitting president, to finish third.
Yeah.
In a presidential contest when you're the sitting president.
Mm-hmm. And not too bad a one. It's not like Taft was a disaster of a president.
No, he wasn't.
I think he's pretty solid by anyone's measure.
But he didn't have the magnitude that Roosevelt had.
No.
And those two split in the party.
Yep.
You
combine those two votes and we don't have any President Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure.
Well,
I'd say, his 1908 was probably a somewhat bigger victory than Buchanan had.
Yeah.
Had Buchanan run in 1860, he easily could have come in third. But he wisely stayed out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one. Taft's presidential election victory was bigger.
Yeah. He did have a loss, and then did Taft... I don't think he held elective office pre-presidency. He was a judge, he was a cabinet minister.
Governor of the Philippines.
He had appointed offices. Buchanan did win elections pre-presidentially. William Howard Taft was Ohio State Court Judge, U.S. Solicitor General, a federal Sixth Circuit Court Judge, law professor, then served on the commission and then Governor General for the Philippines before becoming Secretary of War and then President. A lot of great appointed offices.
Yeah, high appointed offices, but not so much being elected into them. So, even though William Howard Taft has the bigger presidential election victory here, James Buchanan was in the House, he was in the Senate for many years in each one.
Yeah, he won about 5 House races, a couple Senate elections.
Yeah, I think he's
state legislature, of course.
I think he's gonna eke it out here.
Yep.
Taft pretty much had one big victory, whereas Buchanan had a smattering of victories throughout the years.
I was lucky to put my James Buchanan card somewhere that didn't get to the merits of his presidency.
Yeah, that's right.
He's gonna take this category, and we're gonna draw 3 new cards in 3 new categories, which will include number 1, most accomplished children.
Number 2, nicest guy.
And number 3, best president overall.
Ooh, this was a tough one this time around. And we're gonna get a laugh out of the first one.
Yeah, my first one might be a little off kilter as well.
All right, well, I've gone with William Henry Harrison.
Well,
not all of them.
Yep, I've got Thomas Jefferson.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, William Henry Harrison. I only the one child that we're gonna laugh about, John Scott Harrison, was Very accomplished.
Yeah, that's the thing. He was very accomplished,
US
but
House
what
of
ended up happening
Representatives.
was most unfortunate.
His post-death accomplishments.
Yes, yeah. For anybody who may have forgot or have missed the episodes where we talked about it, the son of William Henry Harrison, John Scott Harrison, who was the father of President Benjamin Harrison, had his body dug up and go missing. Another son, the brother of President Benjamin Harrison, future President Benjamin Harrison at this time, was taking a tour of an Ohio medical college and stumbled upon the body. Somebody had dug it up and sold it to the medical college.
Yep.
So there's that.
Yeah.
But he was accomplished.
Yep. In life.
That's just a funny story.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, John Scott Harrison. Yeah, he's accomplished as the father of another president.
Right.
The only time a president's son accomplished that. Yep, served in the House of Representatives from 1853 to 57, opposing all measures designed to permit the extension of slavery, denouncing the Kansas-Nebraska bill in his only floor speech.
Yeah.
Pretty solid way to spend a couple terms in Congress. And
Indeed.
Then, Harrison, 5 sons and 4 daughters lived to maturity.
Yeah, he had a bit of a brood.
I'm seeing you got a couple lawyers, you got a doctor. John Cleves Sims Harrison married the daughter of Zebulon Pike.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
There you go.
Well,
Not too shabby.
Well, he was appointed receiver of the Vincennes, Indiana land office by President James Monroe and was charged with embezzling $12,000.
Oh, boy.
He was dismissed by President Andrew Jackson. Well, that will not erase the accomplishments of John Scott Harrison.
Indeed. And as for Jefferson.
I'm going Jefferson. I had to go Jefferson here. He had, a lot of his children with his wife died very young. 2 lived to adulthood. Mary Jefferson died while her father was president. The only one to live to old age was Martha Patsy Jefferson, who had, I think, 9 children of her own. She was educated in France while her father was a diplomat there. She was in he sent her to the best school that you could go to where little princesses were at, and it was a Catholic school. Martha threatened to become a nun and I think also threatened to marry a European Catholic, and Jefferson had to get her out of there. But she was official hostess at the White House for a time. Her husband was a member of the House of Representatives. Pretty accomplished as far as a woman of her time.
Certainly.
And then, of course, those weren't Jefferson's only children.
Yeah.
He had a lot of children with Sally Hemings, some of them living to adulthood. Madison Hemings. I believe one of them was named Beverly. We're just staying alive and getting through life was an accomplishment for people born in those kinds of circumstances.
Yeah. I mean, objectively, don't we have to go Harrison?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue with Harrison here. Harrison's probably going to take that. Moving on to our next category, Nicest Guy. I'm going Chester Arthur.
I'm going Millard Fillmore. So, Millard Fillmore, known to be a decent bloke. But, boy, not too the realms of Chester Arthur.
Yeah.
Arthur, one of the most,
convivial presidents.
Yeah, one of the most approachable, maybe, just from a bystander point of view.
Yeah, very socially adept, but also known to be, a pretty sensitive guy with a genuine side. Yeah. And then especially if you get the later in life reformed Chester Arthur. He's
that's true.
He's pretty nice.
Yeah, Fillmore, mixed well with people, but I don't know. This one's actually a really close contest, I'm going to say. Let's see if I could glean anything in particular here.
Let's see. Fillmore is called a practical, unemotional man relying on logic and common sense to make a point.
Yeah. He's a likable fellow who mixes readily, most persuasive in small groups. Practical, unemotional man. I think I said in his episode that he was kind of the Mr. Spock of presidents.
Yeah.
That he was more logic-based than emotionally based.
Right. Whereas you got Arthur, who spends his first hours as president weeping alone in a room.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like
two vice presidents who ascended through the death of the president.
Yeah. It'd be harder to choose who might be the nicer one. And it's not to, take anything away from either of them. They've both, been through some shit. Yeah. But I think I'm leaning towards Arthur.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Just because of he had a more party personality, I think we could say. Yeah, whereas Fillmore wouldn't be, really caught out, drinking and eating, late in the night.
Yeah. It's not that Fillmore's going to be, mean to you, but...
Right.
He wouldn't, Chester Arthur's...
You might have a better time with Arthur.
Yeah. Arthur would probably be more impressive.
Yeah.
In his niceness.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could go with him here.
Probably go with Arthur. Which brings us to the category Best President Overall. I'm feeling pretty confident with George Washington.
Oh, man. I've got Dwight D. Eisenhower. And although Eisenhower is one of those ones I like Ike, First term in particular, stronger. But, coming up against Washington, boy.
Yeah. Ike, you can probably say top 10.
I think so.
He's right up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 2017 C-SPAN historian amalgamation rankings put Eisenhower number 5.
Number 5. Wow.
Pretty high.
That is pretty high.
But Washington was number 2.
Well, yeah. Washington is always either 1 or 2.
Yep.
And Eisenhower looks like he's coming up in recent years there.
Yeah. He's pretty solidly ranked as a top 10 guy. And
I'd put him top 10.
Probably deservedly.
I'd put him top 10.
But he's not going to hold a candle to old George Washington.
No, it's hard to. What a card for that category.
Washington takes it. I might be inching back into this game.
Yeah, indeed.
We're going to draw another 3 cards and another 3 categories, which will include most accomplished parents, most underrated, and pre-presidential accomplishments.
It was kind of tough, but I think I was able to do that okay.
A couple of these, I'm just making a shot in the dark here.
Alrighty, so most accomplished parents.
I went with Jimmy Carter, knowing
And-
nothing about his parents.
Okay, I went with John F. Kennedy, knowing a lot about his dad in particular.
Yeah. Wow.
Old Joe Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
What a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Definite mob ties. You know, come on.
Well,
I don't think that's
probably-
even. I don't even think you could argue that
Yeah.
at this point. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. He was on our top 5 most accomplished presidential dads.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean, probably. I mean, I think it's not necessarily, like, confirmed in stone, but that's what's,
Seems incredibly
alleged.
likely.
I mean, but yeah, he was a very powerful
Yeah.
man.
He
I think
absolutely
the
was.
quote was the first person to set out consciously intending to make one of his sons president and succeeding.
Yeah.
So JFK being president was his dad's biggest accomplishment, which
Right.
is
Pretty huge.
pretty huge as far as any presidential parent.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kennedy Sr., very rich, very powerful. Served as chairman of the U.S. Maritime Commission, was ambassador to Great Britain. Whereas Jimmy Carter, James Earl Carter Sr., farmer, peanut broker, local public official. He had only a 10th grade education, but he prospered as a farmer, owned 4,000 acres, declined to join the Ku Klux Klan, which was probably a lot of other peanut farmers on the neighboring farm
Yeah.
were in there. He did not. He was, served on the county school board in 1952, was elected to the Georgia legislature. His mother, Lillian Gordy Carter, was a registered nurse and a Peace Corps volunteer, co-chairman of Lyndon Johnson's presidential campaign committee in her Georgia locality. In the Peace Corps, spent 2 years in India disseminating birth control information.
Wow. Yeah, the classic old birth control techniques like pulling out.
Yeah. Well, that's all India had until Jimmy Carter's mother arrived. Well, I don't think they're going to compete with Joe Kennedy, but
I would, personally, I feel like that is a better accomplishment,
well,
but you
They're
got to
pretty
give it to Joe Kennedy.
yeah. I mean, he was a major
He
figure.
was a major figure.
But as far as
And
just-
not to take away from Rose Kennedy, but I mean, outside of some medical service stuff,
Well-
not too awful much, I don't think.
she hung in there while her sons were all dying.
Yeah, that's true.
She maintained her dignity. That's pretty.
That's an accomplishment. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I feel like I'd be more personally happy with myself with Jimmy Carter's parents' accomplishments, but it's not really the name of the game. So
yeah.
I guess we're
Kennedy.
going to go Kennedy.
Gonna have to take it. Although I'm pretty happy with my choice of Jimmy Carter there.
Yeah.
Not knowing anything about them before.
I really didn't know too much about
Laid
his
him
parents.
down.
Yeah. Next, we got most underrated.
I'm going Richard Nixon.
I'm going William McKinley.
We will consult our C-SPAN historian rankings to determine the level against which they are rated. Richard Nixon coming in at number 28, whereas William McKinley is number 16.
Yeah, Nixon is the more underrated there. No question on that particular poll.
Yeah. I'd have to say I picked Nixon in that category knowing that you, of all people, rate Nixon very highly.
I don't have, he definitely had his problems. I'm not going to say he didn't, but I think he's a better president than he gets credit for. In a lot of polls and a lot of things where it's just basically like just shit on Nixon to do it because of Watergate. And like there's so much more to his presidency, that deserves a look at. I'm not saying he didn't fuck up royally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think substantively he was a very successful president. And if the Watergate burglars had never been caught, we could be talking about Nixon as a top 10 president.
Oh, I think so.
But that having happened, one of the, if not the biggest black mark of any president, and obviously forced to resign.
Yeah.
But substantively, pretty successful. So just how you weigh those two aspects in his rankings.
That's it. But, I mean, having McKinley at, 16?
Yeah, McKinley is 16. Let's look at some...
So that's like the top of the mid-range.
I mean, here's some people who are above McKinley. Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Woodrow Wilson, Lyndon Johnson, John F. Kennedy. I don't think any of those guys belong above McKinley. So I think he's underrated by those names. He probably should be above.
Well, McKinley was an interesting period in American history. It is really when we became an imperialist kind of nation.
Yeah.
The Spanish-American War, whether or not you want to call it Hearst's War, in a sense, yes. McKinley, he did hold off on that until the propaganda of the thing became so much that he had to kind of jump in or look weak.
Well, once he was in, we did a pretty good job. Well, if you're going to have a war as a president, you better be successful at it.
Yeah.
He certainly was that.
Yeah.
And the economy doing pretty well at the time.
And who knows what else he would have started up on.
Yeah.
Had he not been shot, because that was really early in the second term there.
Yeah, and Teddy Roosevelt taking over for him was obviously pretty successful, so...
Yeah.
It was a good, pretty good time to be president. And he made the most of it. And I think, like the handful of names that were mentioned that he could easily be considered better than, but that are ahead of him. And then you got Nixon here at 28 with Jimmy Carter inexplicably at number 26.
Yeah. Yeah, they think that Jimmy Carter and William Taft and Ulysses S. Grant were better presidents than Nixon.
You got Grant, John Quincy Adams.
John Quincy Adams is
pretty
another one.
high
Yeah,
on
it's an odd list.
Yeah, Nixon is, he's just tough to rank because you got his substantive accomplishments versus...
Well, he's such a divisive figure, There's people that defend Nixon. There's people that just outright hate him to the point that they'll never give him any type of consideration. They don't want to hear it. It's Watergate. He's a crook. That's it. Over. Done. They don't want to hear about China and the Soviet Union. None of that.
Well, I don't know.
And I'm not, you can't defend what he did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I want to stress that, But you gotta look at everything.
And you can probably say a lot of other politicians, even presidents, probably did similar things without getting caught.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Which, I mean...
That's not a stretch at all.
That's almost the knock I would have against Nixon is, hey, if you're going to do that, don't get caught.
Right.
Because you have to suffer the consequences on the presidential rankings list.
Yeah, I mean, I feel Nixon's more underrated here on this list
Well,
than McKinley is.
I guess, yeah.
McKinley's got a pretty fair spot there.
Yeah, I think they're both... Yeah, they're both a little underrated on here. If you're going to give me the win with Nixon, then I won't argue with it.
I think Nixon's more underrated than McKinley on that list.
Yeah. Well, we'll let him take the cake here.
Next, we got pre-presidential accomplishments.
I've got Lyndon B. Johnson.
I've got Theodore Roosevelt.
Wow.
So Teddy Roosevelt, man, he's got a bit of a laundry list of pre-presidential accomplishments. He's born weak and sickly. He overcomes that. Turns himself into a burly young man. Quite strapping. He goes out, he does the cowboy thing out there, even though he's wearing Tiffany cufflinks. You know, he's trying to do his thing. He's trying to make his mark.
Yep.
The aforementioned Spanish-American War. TR.
Well, he was
Colonel Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Assistant Secretary to the Navy.
Yeah, he was in the Navy Department whipping that Navy into shape that went out and put the hurt on the Spanish Navy.
Police Commissioner.
And then...
Before that.
Right. Yeah, he was in the New York Legislature, the U.S. Civil Service Commission, New York Police Commissioner, cleaning up the vice-ridden streets of New York City. Yeah. And yeah, Spanish-American War, he's on the administrative side with the Navy, and then volunteering to serve on the front lines.
And being bad.
The Rough Riders, with his infamous gallant charge up San Juan Hill.
That's right.
And then Governor of New York, Vice President.
Trust buster. Overall bad man.
He was pretty bad.
And what's funny, they kind of put him into the vice presidency to kind of put him out of the way.
Yeah, because they wanted other factions of the Republican Party to control New York, because TR wasn't going to be controlled by anybody. It's part of what made him such a great president.
Indeed.
And a very accomplished pre-president.
Right.
Then you got Lyndon Johnson. He was in the House of Representatives from 37 to 49, from Texas's 10th District, and then from 49 to 61, U.S. Senator. Wow. That is a pretty, going on 25-year career.
He had a long political career, and, you know, of course, pre-presidentially, he was able to assassinate the sitting president.
Yeah.
And then, as president, assassinate his brother.
Yep. Well, some conspiracy theorists might allege that.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
Well, LBJ, youngest majority leader in Senate history. Isn't there one of his books about him called Master of the Senate?
I believe so. He was a hell of a politician. I mean, you can't take that away from him.
Yeah, he's. Yeah, I wish I had him on
those
the best politician category.
The early campaigns between he and Pappy O'Daniels, who was part of Bob Wills' group.
Huh.
And if you know, Bob Wills is still the king. Just in case you didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, very distinguished career as a very powerful congressman, and then coming in on the vice presidential ticket to help Kennedy win Texas, and providing, I mean, that was a pretty important edge in a very close election.
Yeah.
So, he did a lot of things, but probably not as many things as Teddy Roosevelt.
Yeah, I mean, not too shabby, but you're going up against TR here.
Yeah. And once again, two vice presidents who ascended.
Yeah.
We got a lot of those facing off against each other in this game.
Indeed.
We're going to be down to our last 3-card hand before we will have 1 card versus 1 in the final category. Here we're going to go in the categories of who had the most accomplished vice president
looks.
And First Lady accomplishment.
Okay. So here we go with most accomplished vice president.
I've got Andrew Jackson.
Nice. I've got George W. Bush. So an interesting matchup here. We got MVB against Dick Cheney. Now, I don't know what you want to talk about with accomplishments, but Dick Cheney was a pretty powerful vice president.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
that's one thing we could say for him.
Well, he was an honorable mention on our top 5 best vice presidents.
Yeah.
Because of his unparalleled power and influence as vice president. But you might want to look out for him as well on our upcoming top 5 worst vice presidents, paradoxically.
Yeah. He might be one of 2 that gets that particular nod.
But he was also, Secretary of Defense?
Yeah.
Under Bush Sr.
Nixon administration special assistant to the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, White House staff assistant, assistant director of the Cost of Living Council up until 73.
Mm-hmm.
Returns to the White House to become deputy assistant to President Ford. White House chief of staff, 75 to 77.
That's a pretty important.
Then elected to the House of Representatives.
Yep.
In 78.
Wow.
Re-elected 5 times. It's on the Budget Subcommittee, House Intelligence Committee, House Minority Whip in the 101st Congress. So, yeah, he's doing some things.
Yeah.
And MVB, of course,
Well,
dude,
he also
pretty
had
much created the party that they're running on.
And Jackson's first vice president was John C. Calhoun.
Well, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to leave that out.
Also, very powerful. And also, maybe look to the top 5 worst vice presidents list.
Yeah, because he was kind of a big old doo-doo head.
Yeah, he was involved in the nullification crisis while he was a sitting vice president. But he'd also been Secretary of War and a very powerful and influential person. And then you got MVB. As the second vice
MVB is
president.
what makes Jackson's case here.
Yep.
That's tough, though.
MVB, yeah, of course, he was in the New York State Senate, then the U.S. Senate. He was Secretary of State before being Vice President, and all during this time instrumental in crafting the Democratic Party. And,
I think the question is Calhoun enough to detract from Jackson winning this hand? Because Cheney, he's in there for a long time. He's close in several administrations, He's been around a long time.
Yeah, well,
And he becomes a pretty important figure in the House.
Yeah, just in terms of holding high offices and wielding a lot of power, Calhoun would be a plus, but then given, his involvement in nullification and just continuing on through we're not supposed to look past his vice presidency, but he's not on the right side of history in terms of states' rights and slavery. I
think that there's a lot of people that would argue that Cheney is, a pretty wicked character.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was going to say
he's not looked at as, a great human being. Kind of a. Well, I said it about Calhoun. I'll say it about Dick Cheney. He's kind of a doo-doo head.
Yeah. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
This is a tough one.
But, yeah, Cheney, he brought a lot of, experience and expertise to the post-9/11 era, where a lot of national security changes were made. some good, some bad. We haven't had another 9/11 in the country, but, we did have kind of a fiasco in Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That being said,
Afghanistan.
Clay, Webster, and Calhoun were the great triumvirate, of just Congress.
Yeah.
For those many years, and MVB was instrumental in creating the Democratic Party. I think we have to give this to Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, I would not...
I don't think Calhoun negates enough to take away from that, because even if he was, like, kind of a piece of shit, I mean, he was still powerful and influential.
Yeah, he was very accomplished in his own way.
So, yeah, I think we got to go Jackson there.
We'll give it to Jackson. An interesting category.
Indeed.
Interesting matchup.
Good matchup. Next up, we got looks.
Let's stop all this talk of politics.
Policy,
and just...
Let's just look at raw sex.
Get the raw sexual manliness of Gerald Ford
going up against John Quincy Adams.
Okay. Well,
John Quincy Adams
was never a male model.
Yeah.
As Gerald Ford was.
Yeah.
Gerald Ford, the worst thing you could say about him is by the time he's president, he's balding, but so is John Quincy Adams. Whereas a young man, Gerald Ford, quite a fine specimen.
Indeed.
Of masculinity and
stellar
athleticism.
Athlete. University of Michigan, go blue.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any question here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got Gerald Ford's, college football photo.
Yeah.
There's not much better looking presidents in any photos that you can find.
I don't think so. I think we got to go Jerry Ford here.
Yeah, John Quincy Adams, short, stocky. If we're talking most intellectual president, JQA would crush Gerald Ford, but that's not the category here.
Nope.
Gerald
Purely
Ford
objectifying these individuals.
taking it from JQA.
It brings us to First Lady accomplishment.
I've got Michelle Obama.
And I've got Dolley Madison.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Dolley Madison. One of the great first ladies. I mean, really defining the role of what the first lady could be.
Yeah.
Known for her parties, and diametrically opposed to her husband's temperament. But it really worked in their favor.
Yeah,
They were a super popular
way.
couple, and she was incredibly popular as a first lady.
Mm-hmm.
The nation loved Dolley Madison.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways she's the greatest first lady. More modern.
Well, she became like the grande dame of D.C.
Yeah, I mean,
after her tenure as first lady. She was around for a long time,
right,
up until the Polk presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a staple of the Washington social scene throughout that time.
Yeah, and more modern first ladies are known for, doing a lot of work in their own right, having their own initiatives. But at the time, the first lady, Dolley Madison, just in terms of how much she helped her husband do his work, is probably unparalleled as a first lady. Just the Washington social scene at the time was so important in terms of getting things through Congress.
Yeah.
And she was whining and dining the congressman like no other first lady has, and really making up for her husband's social shortcomings.
Mm-hmm.
So she wasn't out there like doing her own thing like Eleanor Roosevelt was, but FDR could have done his own thing with or without Eleanor, and did.
Yeah.
But James Madison, his wife, was integral to his rise to power and him being able to do what he did.
That's it.
Which makes her one of the greatest first ladies.
Indeed. And that's not to take anything away from Michelle Obama there, but boy, bad luck, tough luck coming up against Dolley Madison.
Yeah, I mean, she was very accomplished, just in her own right.
Sure.
Graduating from Princeton and Harvard Law School, working at a prestigious law firm, and then becoming a vice president at the University of Chicago Medical Center before being first lady, where she was very popular.
Yeah, I mean, those
well-liked.
are some pretty great achievements.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't take that away from her, but I think just the overall...
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got to go Dolley Madison.
Yeah, I mean, she's right there in the top echelon.
I mean, she
of
made,
first ladies.
like, the first ladies,
Yeah.
you know. Would the first lady have been as much of a thing if it wasn't for somebody like Dolley Madison? I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, she really set a bar
Yeah,
that other people were measured against.
I think so.
And I
And
mean,
that's
I think,
super important. I don't think you could overlook that.
yeah. And we've read varying reports of where the term First Lady originated, but one
Right.
of them is that it was as applied to Dolley Madison.
Yeah,
Just
it
who
was,
she was.
delivered by President Taylor in her eulogy.
Yeah, not specifically applied to her while she was the president's wife,
Right.
but just who she was over decades of her life.
That's it. I think, therefore, we got to go
Dolley Madison.
Dolley Madison here.
Gonna take it. And now it will all come down to one more category and one more card.
We
that
have Best Businessman.
Well, I've got Andrew
And
Johnson.
I've got John Adams. Well, you got to go Andy Johnson.
Yeah, I feel like these two were in this category before.
I think they were. I want to say they were. We talked about, John Adams' business was the law.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was successful at it, but when I think of just like business, you got a tailor, you know?
Yeah. Andy
Where-
Johnson.
and Harry Truman was like a haberdasher.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, well, I mean, running your own law practice is a business.
certainly.
John Adams was successful in that. But Andy Johnson, he was taking care of business as well.
Yeah.
Coming up from nothing, apprenticed as a tailor, and then eventually rising to be a very successful tailor,
Right.
making a lot of real estate investments,
As well as a lot of connections.
owning a farm. I think John Adams had a farm as well.
Indeed.
Both guys doing some farming on the side.
Right.
But just in terms of pure business, Andy Johnson,
I think so.
I'd probably go with.
Yeah, I think so.
Andy Johnson will take the final category.
And that'll bring us to the card count. And we're back with the results. My burst of energy at the beginning of the game, well, it faltered. And I ended up with 18.
And I had a slow start, but then came on strong and ended up with 26.
Thereby, James J. Hamilton, victorious yet again in another round of presidential war. But pretty cool to switch things up again. Provide a new facet of the game for everybody to play at home.
As always, the real winners are the listeners.
That's it. It's all about the discussion. that takes place.
That's
And
right.
And that's going to wrap it up for another episode of Presidential War. We'll see you next month with another exciting edition of Presidential War, and who knows what we could cook up for the next time. For the Dead Presidents Podcast, I'm Stephen Lincoln Douglas.
And I'm James J. Hamilton.
We'll catch you later.
Thanks for listening.